Hello, my name is Zach Gibbs, and I'm a content developer within education services inside Juniper Networks. And today we will be going through the PE to CE protocols basic OSPF configuration learning byte. All right, so here is our little topology. We have a few different things going on. We have, we have the red VPN, which both CEs are a part of, and then we have host 1 and host 2. You can see the individual addresses there. Host 1 is a part of the 10.1.2.0/24 network, and it's using the 10.1.2.1 address. Host 2 is a part of the 10.4.1.0/24 network, and it's using the 10.4.1.1 address. And that'll be important when we do our verification because we'll need to make sure that those two hosts can communicate. And then between the PE devices, that is PE1 and CE1, and the PE2 and CE2, so rather between the PE and CE devices, not between the PE devices, we will be configuring OSPF. We will be sharing routes from the L3 VPN through OSPF to the CE devices. And something else to point out is that there's already a functioning L3 VPN between PE1 and PE2, so we don't have to worry about actually configuring that part of it. Although we will have to configure the OSPF part of the PE to CE protocol connection. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump to the devices and get this going. Okay, so here is the PE1 device. Let's go ahead and jump into configuration mode. And then we'll go to routing instances, and it's the red VPN. And we can see here that, okay, our L3 VPN is configured. And we can do the run show BGP summary command. We can see that, okay, we are connected with a device, and we can see that the red VPN is configured there and is working. Things look good. We got the BGP L3 VPN.0. This device is a route reflector, so it's just reflecting the routes. And so we can look at the route table, that is, for the red VPN. And we can see here that all we're getting here is the other end. So it's the connection that is between PE2 and CE1 that's showing up in BGP. And that's normal. So that's kind of a little bit of verification that we can see that, okay, this L3 VPN appears to be working. And so we need to set up the OSPF part of it. So as you can see here, we don't have OSPF configured. Let's go ahead and jump into protocols, OSPF, and we'll configure this with area 0. And so all we have to do here is really set the interface, and that's going to be Gigi002, right? Yep, 2. And that is the interface that PE1 has that points towards CE1. And we'll go ahead and commit that configuration. And then let's go ahead and jump to PE2 and basically do the same thing. So routing instances, it's going to be the red VPN. You see OSPF is not configured. So we'll just configure OSPF area 0 interface Gigi002 again. And then commit that configuration. Now let's jump back to PE1 and check the OSPF neighborships. And with this, you have to specify the instance command. And we'll say red VPN for the instance. And great, we're in the full state here. Is exactly what we want to see. And so we can see the ID here. And so this is just the router ID. So 1.0.1. That is the address on the interface of CE1 that is connecting to PE1 on Gigi002 on PE1, that is. And so we can see the interface here. Everything looks good. This is how it should look. Let's jump back to PE2. And look at the same thing. Okay, that looks good. So let's look at the routing tables now. You can see here we have a few different things I want to point out. We have some OSPF routes, and this is from the local CE. Host 2 is in the 10.4.1.1. That's its IP address, and so it's going to be reachable through this route here. That's how we're going to figure out how to get to that. And so that looks really good. We have these OSPF routes. And then if we look at the other routes we have up here, the BGP routes, this is what we want to see as well. We can see here that these are the routes that we are getting from PE1, and they do represent the CE1 routes. The host 1 route is 10.1.2.1, and so that would be reachable through here. So that looks pretty good. So we are receiving that through BGP, and that's perfect. So if we do the run show BGP summary, we can see we are getting those routes from PE1 there. So that looks great. That's exactly what we want to see there. So, okay, great. So we got the routes we're sharing. let's go ahead and jump to the customer device, which is a virtual router split up into different devices, and it houses the CE routers as well as the hosts. So let's go ahead and jump to that and see what we see here as far as its routing table for the different CE devices. So show route table, let's say CE-1, and we're not getting all our routes, are we? We're not getting any routes through OSPF other than this multicast route, which the rest of the routes are not multicast routes. It's some static routes, some direct routes. That's not what we want to see. So let's look at CE2, and we'll see the same thing here. And there's a reason for that, because we need to do a little bit extra configuration. So, okay, so let's see. Yeah, we don't have any other OSPF routes here, so we're not getting the routes from the other CE devices. From the CE1's not getting CE2 routes, and CE2 is not getting CE1 routes. And so let's go ahead and jump back to MXA here. And you can see here that we do have a problem, because if we do the run show route table, was that red? Yeah, red VPN. And we can see here that, okay, we do have the BGP routes. We looked at this on PE2, but those are not OSPF routes, so they're not going to be automatically redistributed into OSPF by default. That's just not how it works. So what we have to do is we have to set up a routing policy that takes those BGP routes and puts it into OSPF. And that makes sense. So just at the OSPF hierarchy, let's just say set export, and we'll call this OSPF-VPN. And we haven't configured that yet, so we need to go to the policy options, policy statement, OSPF-VPN, set from protocol BGP. And you could lock this down a lot more to specify which BGP route you could match on communities and things like that. But for the sake of time, we're just going to say from protocol BGP, because we want to take all those BGP routes and redistribute into OSPF. And set then accept, we'll commit that. We'll do the same on PE2. And then here's PE2. And so set protocols, OSPF export, we'll call it the same thing, OSPF-VPN. And then we'll need to create that routing policy. We'll say protocols BGP again, set then accept. Of course, you could really make that much more specific if you need, but we don't need it for this learning byte. And then we'll commit the configuration. And then let's jump back to the customer device. And here in the customer device, let's look at those tables again. And hey, we got some good news there. We're getting those OSPF routes that we need. These are the OSPF routes from CE2. So that is showing up. And then if we look at CE2, we'll see the OSPF routes from, went up a little too far there, from CE1 showing up. And so that's awesome. That's what we want to see. But we want to do one last thing. We want to make sure communication can happen here, right? So let's go ahead and ping from, let's say, host 1 to host 2. And as I said before, host 1, host 2 are just routing instances, virtual routers on this one device here. So let's go ahead and do that ping. So if we're going to ping, let's ping host 2 10.4.1.1 from host 1. And perfect, that's what we want to see. And just for fun, let's go ahead and ping from host 2 to host 1. And great, communication is working. OSPF has been configured as the PE to CE protocol. And keep in mind, this is a very basic configuration. There might be tons of other things you need to do depending on the environment you're working in. So that does bring us to the end of this Learning Bytes. As always, thanks for watching.
Visit the Juniper Education Services website to learn more about courses. View our full range of classroom, online, and e-learning courses. Learning paths, industry segment and technology-specific training paths. Juniper Network's certification program, the ultimate demonstration of your competence. And the training community, from forums to social media. Join the discussion.